Indigenous resurgence is a movement that has been gaining momentum over the past few decades. It is characterized by a resurgence of indigenous values, traditions, and cultures in response to colonial oppression and the exploitative systems of capitalism, patriarchy, and racism that have been imposed on indigenous peoples. This article will explore the ways in which indigenous resurgence is expressed through the arts and culture. Indigenous resurgence is a movement that is rooted in the knowledge, wisdom, and practices of indigenous peoples, and is dedicated to the reclamation of indigenous sovereignty, autonomy, and self-determination. It is a movement of decolonization and revitalization that seeks to dismantle oppressive systems and restore balance to the relationships between indigenous and non-indigenous peoples. Indigenous resurgence is a spiritual, cultural, and political movement that is rooted in the notion of indigenous resurgence, meaning a revitalization of indigenous cultures, languages, customs, and teachings. One of the primary ways in which indigenous resurgence is expressed is through the arts and culture. Indigenous art and culture has been used as a tool for resistance and resilience for centuries, and continues to be an integral part of indigenous resurgence today. From the traditional music of the powwow to the contemporary works of graffiti, indigenous art and culture is a powerful force that is used to reclaim and celebrate indigenous identity, sovereignty, and culture. It is also used to raise awareness and educate non-indigenous people about the struggles that indigenous peoples have faced, and the importance of indigenous sovereignty. Indigenous artists and cultural practitioners are at the forefront of indigenous resurgence, creating works that not only reclaim traditional knowledge and culture, but also challenge colonial systems of oppression. For example, the Anishinaabe artist and activist Dylan Miner creates works that are inspired by traditional Anishinaabe teachings and beliefs, but are also critical of colonialism and its impacts. His work is an example of how indigenous art can be used both to reclaim traditional knowledge and to challenge oppressive systems. Indigenous culture also plays an important role in the movement of indigenous resurgence. Cultural practices such as powwows, sweat lodges, and traditional ceremonies have been used for centuries to reconnect indigenous peoples with their knowledge, traditions, and culture. These practices have been revitalized in recent years, and are an important part of indigenous resurgence. They are also used to educate non-indigenous people about the importance of recognizing and respecting indigenous sovereignty. Indigenous resurgence is a powerful movement that is rooted in the knowledge, wisdom, and practices of indigenous peoples. It is expressed through the arts and culture, which are used to reclaim and celebrate indigenous identity, sovereignty, and culture. It is also a movement that is dedicated to decolonization and revitalization, and is committed to challenging colonial systems of oppression. Indigenous resurgence is a movement of resistance and resilience, and is an important part of the struggle for justice for indigenous peoples.